Welcome to the Attract, Sell, Nurture podcast. My name is Case Dean, and on this podcast, we celebrate the power of service businesses and their ability to change our world. So join us for insightful conversations with innovative service business owners and entrepreneurs who are making waves within their industry. We're going to delve into their experiences, their triumphs, their challenges, their inspirations, their motivations, and the difference that they are making in the lives of the people that they care about the most. So whether you're a business owner yourself or passionate about making an impact, this podcast is for you. It's more than just business. This is about using business to transform lives and our world. So tune in and be inspired by their stories and their insights on service business and societal transformation. Let's get into this episode. To another episode of the Attract, Sell, Nurture podcast. Today I'm speaking to Johanne Penney. Hello, Johanne. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me on.
Well, right back at you, because thank you for the invitation to the Amp Up Your Voice event, which was last Thursday, correct?
Yeah, last Thursday.
Absolutely amazing. Really, really honored to have been there. And we'll get more onto that in a moment. But first of all, let me explain to everybody watching and listening exactly who you are. So Johanne Penney is the founder and CEO of Amp Up Your Voice, a progressive anti-racism and diversity, equity and inclusion consultancy that partners with modern and progressive brands and businesses who are on their journey to authentically diversifying their business and who want to be true advocates. Working up to and mainly at C-suite level, Johanne helps drive real change and elevates brands by ensuring inclusion and belonging and to authentically be part of the racial equity change movement. She does this through a range of media, devising long-term DEI strategies and delivering high-energy, unique and educational training and workshops and amazing events like I was at last week. She's also a public expert speaker and mentors organizations that want to change and proactively champion DEI. Johanne also coaches individuals who need support around DEI to navigate and grow their careers and those who are affected by systemic barriers to success. Johanne prides herself on being a positive disruptor. I like that. And is also a culture writer. I want to know more about that. And author of the ebook, The Road to Diversity, Equity and Inclusion. I've got loads of questions, but in a minute. Let me just finish the bio. So this ebook I had a look at it. I haven't read it, but I would say it's a book that's available in digital form. The reason I say that is because ebooks have this connotation of being and then books are like real things. And it's an actual proper book. It's just available in digital form, also known as an ebook. But it is a guide on how to take positive action and drive inspirational change. And we will be providing a link to that ebook in the show notes of today's episode. So thanks again, Johanne, for being on the podcast. My first question and a bit of a statement is that your business was incorporated on 9th of December 2021. And so there are, from today, 11 days until your second year anniversary. So congratulations for that.
Thank you. I don't know where you got that date from, but actually it started in late 2019, but it was formalised in 2020.
Exactly.
So we're heading up to our third year.
Right, there you go. So the incorporation date would be everything to do with Companies House and paying the tax man, right? That's where that comes into it.
Oh, so the incorporation
date. So then 9th of December. And so that, do you remember that date by any chance? Was it you that took care of it? No. So I was wondering if you remembered why then for the incorporation, especially what you've just said about when it actually was started. That break between when it was started, beyond an idea and turned into action, and then incorporated. What was that gap between those two dates, roughly?
Well, I totally pivoted my career. I'll tell you my story a bit later, but I pivoted my career. I was working in the healthcare sector as a senior exec, and I pivoted late 2019 as I lost my job to racial discrimination. And so that those initial stages were me like literally being blindsided, but at the same time being like, I literally cannot let this happen again. How can I help other people? So it was all that embryonic thinking, and I was working the sort of, the look of the business, the feel of the business, and I wanted it to be a
Hmm.
true passion project. And it wasn't, oh, I want to start a business. It was driven out of a need to create change. It was driven out of my pain points. And I think often you have to reach a low to recognize your potential and where you want to be. And would say that's what happened to me in 2019. So it took pretty much, the best part of the year to formalize it. So in terms of the business, it was the business, but I was already, that embryonic thinking had already started, and I was already building the business up until that point where we became formalized.
So when you're talking about over that year, I think that's the first thing that comes to mind is the idea you had off the back of that idea you had that became action and became something real.
Hmm.
Is that what you have today, or is there an evolution that's happened?
Yeah, there's been an evolution. So I think when I first started, my focus was much more narrower. So it was really about specifically how do I help Black women. So
Hmm.
what happened to me, and what in those moments I recognized I had nowhere to go, no support, no one to advocate for me, nowhere to get help from. I just remember thinking there must be so other Black women that are going through this right now. And so that was, in terms of helping people navigate their careers. And don't forget, I'm a senior exec, so you know and as we know, as Black women, the more successful you become, the more systemic barriers you're going to face. So I was like, there is a gap here, and I need to tap into this and help other people. And then came 2020. So don't forget that was late 2019, and then 2020 March we had the very public murder of George Floyd, and that literally again pivoted the business. So I was able to leverage my senior exec experience plus my lived experience, marry those two together. And it just, I mean, in a way, it did happen quite organically because I'd have people messaging me or ringing me or emailing me all the time saying, can I say this? Can I say Black? What should I do?
Mm.
I'm being treated like this. My firm's doing that. And actually, I just started to build and build on that momentum. And that has been the evolution. And then I suppose, coming up to late 2023, going to 2024, it's pivoting again because we've had the conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion. People pretty much get it's the right thing to do, and morally it's the right thing to do. So now we're going into what does that look like? How does that translate into practical, tangible actions, particularly in the corporate space? So that's where Amp Up Your Voice primarily works, in the corporate space. So what does that long-term journey look like, and how can we bring our expertise to you to help you on that strategic journey where you're going to reach this gold standard that you want to?
So you've mentioned it already, and it's the first time I have to say I've heard it said in such a way that makes it true. No, even though we may not know the details about it, but we know it to be true when you've said it. You said you lost your job to racism. Now, there are people who, including myself, would suspect they've lost a job to racism, suspect they haven't got a promotion due to racism, suspect. It's always, is that really what's happening? You, from when I listened to your story, which I want you to actually explain now, if you will, but listening to you at the event tell your story, you put a stamp on it. I lost my job to racism. So apart from going into that story about exactly how that happened, do you understand what I mean by my highlighting the fact that you've put that stamp on it where other people can feel like I'm saying, like they suspect something's happened, but they just carry on with life, but don't really attribute it to that.
Yeah, I think it's really hard in those moments to articulate what you're going through, and then you'll have a lot of people telling you that it's not your truth and that's not what's happening. But obviously, what happened to me was so overt. So I think we all experience quite a lot of covert racism and microaggressions, etc. But when something happens to you that's so overt, there's nowhere to hide. And
Right,
I just knew in those moments that I was going to be totally unapologetic about what happened to me. For one of the main reasons is that they tried to silence me.
right.
And so actually that was the moment when I knew, I haven't got this wrong. This is absolutely what is going on here. And like I said, I'll tell my story, but I was really, and I still am, very unapologetic about telling that story and walking in my truth, even though I was asked to sign an NDA, non-disclosure
Mm.
agreement. So, but I've managed to tell my story in a way that people can relate to it and understand that that they are experiencing these issues, particularly in the corporate space.
So what happened to you?
Oh, deep breath. So, late 2019. So we started. I was passed up for promotion
Well, so
to.
let's start from the beginning, because obviously, and that was the thing when I was listening to you at the event. I was thinking, oh my god, now I'm going to know too much. But let's start from the beginning, from a beginner's mind. What was your job? Let's set the scene. What were you doing? What was your position? What kind of company were you working in?
Okay, well, I can't say too much because I signed the
Of
NDA,
course, of
but
course.
I was in the healthcare sector. I was senior exec. I was working in policy, so working with the regulators, so senior management teams, senior leadership teams in terms of healthcare for the UK and actually internationally as well. So I had been there for 7 years. I was an A-star performer, so a high performer, and it was a pretty small organisation, but when it's your promotion, right? Everyone knew it was my promotion. But what started to happen is we could see that the other person who went for the role, who was internal, did not fundamentally meet the essential criteria for the role, but had become very friendly with the senior leadership team. But actually, that's not the racial discrimination. I couldn't prove that, and that's
Hmm.
what happens to a lot of people. So I was passed up for promotion to this person who was not a high performer, and like I said, didn't meet the criteria. But actually, a couple of months later, I had taken some time off work. My mum had cancer, and one of my sons was in a lot of trouble, and I took a month off work, and I went back into the office, and the chief exec took me down into the office with a smile and said, "We've been looking at your contract, and actually, if you take any more time off, we don't have to pay you." Whilst they had paid all of my peers for a plethora of other reasons, with the only differential factor being that I was black. And actually, I had a peer that was doing the same job as me, who had also taken a month off work. That conversation wasn't had with her at all.
Mm.
So to sum it up, they tried to introduce retrospective long-term sick policies to me and me alone.
But
And it was
at the
that.
moment, were you the only black person working in the company at the
No.
time, or at that level? Sorry, that you were
Yeah.
working at. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. But what you've just explained, it seems to be the middle or the tail end of something that had started, because I can totally get it happening, and but it again sounds like the middle or tail end. So what was happening previous to that? Because this seems to like a culmination.
Well, it was the whole promotion, I like to call it the episode, whereby myself and the other candidate were almost pitted against each other. But I never forget, one of my colleagues took me down into the kitchen the next day, and I was so upset. This is about the job. And he said to me, "You know, you were never going to get that role." And I said, what? He said, you were never going to get that role. You do not fit. Your face does not fit. So, and I wanted to tell you, he was a person of color, brown person. I wanted to tell you, but I had to let you go through that. You had to go through that process, and you were never going to. And I spent so much energy and time. You know, it was a really hard experience. So you're right. So that was all the pre stuff. So essentially, I think they probably just thought we want her
You were
out,
kind of
right?
blacklisted, as we've used the word,
Yeah,
right? And they were deciding. But up until that point, had you been playing nice up until that point, and then something happened, and then they knew exactly who they had in the building?
yeah, yeah. They when when my I don't know if I should say this, but when my chief exec called me to tell me I hadn't got the promotion, I just was like, "Are you actually joking? Are you actually seriously having this phone call with me?" Because we both know that that was not the right decision. So yeah, they kind of like, oh, we're not messing with Joe here. Like we've messed up, and it was that nepotism stuff,
But
all
did they
that.
know? Did they at this time? She'd been there for 7 years. Do you feel that they knew what you were like and just poked the bear, or do you think that they were introduced to the real person and just realized, oh, she's actually not this kind of person we can brush aside?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of pretty much feel like I'm always myself, and
Yeah,
always
yeah.
had a strong voice. But I feel like because of the situation that happened and the opportunity that came up and what happened in that entire process, and this went on over quite a few months, by the way. It wasn't like
Mm,
a quick thing. It was like months up into this big promotion. So we all know, these jobs are not easy to come by. So I just think in those moments, they knew they'd done wrong. And when people know they've done something wrong, they become immediately defensive,
right.
right? So that was the start of them going, oh, this is very uncomfortable for us now, because I wasn't quiet. I was really unhappy about it. And I never forget going in and accidentally seeing the other person had left their application on the photocopier and had literally, and I can't remember, there was like 3 or 4 pieces of work we had to do, and literally had just, I mean, probably spent a couple of hours doing a one liner for each question. I mean, it was so poor, so poor. And also, I know that I totally smash interviews. You actually know I'm a speaker now, so I'm really good at presentations, etc. etc. The whole thing just stunk. The whole thing was awful. But like I said, that wasn't the part that I was able to prove, but that was the beginning of the end. And that's why when you heard me doing my talk at the Amp Up Your Voice event, I said in the weeks and the months leading up to this series of events, it wasn't a one-off thing that happened. But prior to that, the black people within the organisation all used to have a joke that we were like the underclass within the organisation.
Damn.
So just like I suppose, so like on a day-to-day level, for instance, there will be, and I was the only person that managed the team within the organisation, right? And I had underperformers in my team that I was performance managing. So, say for instance, we would have a Monday morning meeting, and somebody who wasn't performing very well said, "Oh, I need to work from home this day. Um, I've got the engineer coming in." Fine.
Mm,
If I said, or any of the black person said, "Oh, I've got a dentist appointment, I need to work from home," you would literally have to publicly in that meeting explain in detail why you had to work from home.
okay.
And then not on top of that, you would then have to make up the time or come in and say, for instance, you had one day where you used to work from home, you have to come in on a work from home day to make that up. It's those type of aggressions and microaggressions that have that cumulative effect and then start to make you realize that you're the underdogs and you're not as valued as people that don't look like you.
So you were there for 7 years. Again, it's from my experience. I don't know if it's your experience, but this kind of thing can kick off from the recruitment process, right? And then when you're in, something happens within the first 6 months and you start realizing what your place is. Was this the kind of experience for you? Was it kind of gradual or sustained from when you first get in? Because you've just explained about other people who, after you got to a certain level, lower down from you, how they were being treated. But for you, from getting involved with this company to starting to work with them, was it something you were seeing that you yourself, because I can understand Johanne Penney today and how she deals with it. But if we just take into account how we have to move in this world, we know, but I forgot because I had this phrase in my head, go along to get along, or get along to go along, or whatever it is in the beginnings. But then there's something that gets us to a point saying, oh, hey, guy, it's not with me, you're doing this. So for you, when you came in, were there things that were happening, or did it happen when you got to a certain level in the company?
I think I probably didn't realize. I think I probably picked up on, like we said, we had the in jokes, and it wasn't like a big thing that had happened to me. So it was more of that covert stuff that was happening quite a lot. Also, I'd just come back from maternity leave, and I'd been off for pretty much a year, and this job was a promotion, so I was excited. I was like, yes, I'm killing it. I've just I've just had a baby. I've just got a promotion, and actually, I put everything I had into the job, right? But then obviously, as you start to see it play out and you start to see how other people are treated within the organisation, you're like, this is not sitting right with me.
Right.
But, sometimes your other motivations or drivers can override some of the stuff that's going on. But so when I talked about in the beginning how it was so overt, there was no running away from what had actually happened to me in those situations. So I couldn't go, it's still a great job, or I really enjoy what I do. It was like, I cannot be here. This does not sit right with me.
So I think you're, from what I've understood about you, and now we're connected on LinkedIn, and from what I've seen about you and digging into some of your previous informations and stuff you publicized, you're not shy about this at all. It's the core of what you do. So I don't really want to dig into that. I totally get how important it is for getting things started, but my focus is still going to be on, okay, let's just take 7 people in the same situation of you. Not everyone's going to go ahead and start a business. Some are just going to go and get another job or cry to somebody about it. And this is not to, denigrate anybody, right? But then there's you who decides, there's other people going for this, I'm going to start a business. And you make it sound so easy, but helping people start business and doing it myself, it actually isn't. I started my business from a need, which was, I need money and I couldn't find a job because of racism. Like 400 CVs, no reply. Damn it, I've got a family. I changed my name by deed poll, right? My name was originally a extremely African name, right? My parents are Nigerian. 400 CVs sent out. Part of my name is still a nickname off my Nigerian name, right? So it's not like I went from something African to Peter or anything like that. But 400 CVs sent out at one time. This is after the economic crisis. I was in France at the time. And I remember doing a calculation and realizing I had a 0.0% return, not for asking for an interview, but just acknowledging that I'd applied in the first place. And it was at this point that I was just like, what? And I was speaking to my younger brother, and he said to me, we talked about the situation, and he spoke to me about the change of name. I tell you, January 2019, I believe it was, I changed my name by deed poll whilst in France. April of that year, I had a job. So
someone told me your story, after the event, and I was just like, that is such a powerful story because it's our reality.
I don't really talk about it a lot, and this is going to be one of the first time anybody who's listened to the podcast is going to hear it. There's certain people I do speak. It's not to be hidden. I think there's so much that we go through that we just take it as a given. We just kind of deal with it and carry on. And that's why I've been so interested to come across you, because just like the last lady I interviewed, who's JJ Clark, who's also an anti-racism consultant, her thing has been like, nah, stop. We're not doing this anymore. But I'm still at the point of trying to work out and help me understand the functions that are going on in your brain that are saying I need to turn this into a business, as opposed to go around, just call my cousins and my sisters or whatever it is and just tell them, you know what, if anything's happened at work, just don't have it, blah, 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 blah. what is it that makes you turn into a business though?
I just think it was a pivotal moment for me in my life as a person, losing my job, losing my career. It, like I said before, I was completely blindsided, I broke up with my partner of 13 years. We sold our house. I mean, it was catastrophic. But in the midst of that, and I've got a phoenix tattooed on my arm, and Still I Rise by Maya Angelou, because it was in those moments that something just came up in me like, nah,
Yeah, yeah,
this is not going to be my
yeah,
life. This
yeah.
is not what is going to happen here. And, you know, I, I just think it just came from that one, that passion, that two, desire to make things right. I felt it was such an injustice that I took that and I turned that energy into how do I create something that is a legacy? How do I create something for my children? How
That's
do
it.
I turn this around so that I am not another story?
That's amazing. But I want you to focus on the you, right? Because trust me, I speak to a lot of people with amazingly big hearts who talk a lot about the people they look after, and I'm just like, I totally get it. I do the same thing. But when I imagine that pivotal point in your life, I think
Yeah.
about two things, and I'm okay with being wrong. I think about two things. One is a way of avenging what happened to you with this
Mm,
company
mm,
organization, but the other one, if I stop focusing on all of the people you're trying to help and I just focus on you, the other one is saying I have to go back out into this
mm,
marketplace, which I've just now, through my experience, no matter what conversations I've had previously, no matter what I've been taught, no matter what I've read, no matter what I've suspected, I've just literally had it like wide open to me about how this whole thing's works. And I think, yes, legacy and everything, but if there was any chance of you going back into a C-suite role or any kind of senior management, it seems like the business was also you turning around and saying, I need to change this terrain because I'm not going to willingly just step into another situation like this. It has to
mm.
change. And that's quite powerful. But that's what comes to me is there any truth in that?
Yeah, I totally felt like I was at the crossroads. I thought, I could go and get another job. I could try and go and get another job. I could go and get another senior exec job. But what I know is going to happen is this again. And
Right.
what I know is going to happen will be the barriers that are going to be presented to me because we know, like I said before, the systemic barriers that we face. And the more senior you become, the more successful you become, the more they're in position. So you will often be the only black woman in a room
Right.
or person of color. Or, I spoke to someone yesterday who's got a massive tech company and she went to Malaga and she said it was me and another brown black woman in the audience out of all those hundreds, maybe thousands of people.
Yeah, that's nuts.
And I just thought, I'm not putting myself through this. I'm not going to do it. I'm not putting myself through it. And I gave myself a chance. I backed myself. And to be honest with you, Case, I've always known that I could have my own business since I was
Yes,
little.
that's what I was thinking.
But
Yeah.
I've never had the opportunity, the access, all the things that you need to do it. And so I felt in those moments, this is your moment. Does that make sense?
It does totally
This.
make sense, but you've gone to another level quite quickly, and I've seen other people close to your situation go through an evolution into, and my brother, we talk about this a lot, which is we need to make our own thing. We just have to, because
Yeah.
we're never going to be respected. And my brother is a creative director. He's been a creative director of Nike, Jordan, Apple, Sonos. He's now the creative director of Tidal. And he said that he's mentored people off the back of George Floyd. There was a school that they created in LA called One School. It was taking people in, giving them a program after like 8 weeks to help them turn into creative. Some of his cohorts have gone on to do ads for the Super Bowl. But what he's explained is he's also watched a lot of people, whether or not they've come for the program or not, go into companies and just be crushed. They're never the same again
Mm.
because they're not respected, because they're rinsed out, because they're marginalized, because they go in, like you've said, like you started that after the maternity with all of this exuberance to make a good job and do all the value, not realizing they're going to be used. And if you do try and get out of your lane, you're quickly put back in that lane. So for me,
Yeah.
when I've done my business, it's not really been about, I want to be my own boss. It's been a necessity to actually do
Mm.
it. Like, I'm not going to be able to eat if I don't do something. And I found a way to do this. But people I've seen in your situation have just gone ahead and become a life coach or become a coach for people or career coach, and they've stopped there. You haven't, though. You've taken it to a whole nother level. What is the difference between what, I suppose if I put it like that, why don't you stop at just coaching people, women, and just having them as clients, earning a crust, and also making a bit of change that way?
It wasn't good enough. It wasn't going to make enough change, and
Right.
actually that's quite internal. So yes, coaching others, and I still find a lot of value. I get a lot of value out of helping others and doing that coaching and mentoring piece. But this was more about how do we change other people's perspectives? How do we change the landscape? How do we actually have tangible outcomes in that corporate space where we are going to see a difference? Because it's the people that are running the countries, running the UK, who are generally cis white men that need to have that education piece, that need to have that change of perspective, that need to have that reflective piece on how they have been either wittingly or unwittingly contributing to systemic racism and bias. And I was like, I need to speak to those people. I need to get, we need to create that change in terms of, a more holistic view, and actually at a very senior level, which is why I was quite focused on going in at C-suite leadership team level, because I think you need that buy-in, that top-down executive buy-in. So listen, Kate, so we've had DE&I training, workshops, etc. from as long as I can remember.
Yeah, I was about to say,
So
yeah.
what's the difference now?
Yeah.
The difference is, it's the leaders that are role modeling the behavior, the culture, and the
For
tone
sure.
and they're the ones that are adding business value. They're the ones now that people are really watching their language and how they articulate themselves. They're the companies that are missing out on crucial talent if they're not diverse and they're not inclusive and they don't ensure that's like, safety. And, I'm not going to lie, George Floyd's murder basically propelled that conversation. So at the same time as you're giving me amazing props, and there was also timing, because it was a very prevalent conversation. I am a very hard worker, and I was very passionate. And if you've got passion and hard work and all that drive and determination, plus the timing and the momentum,
Yeah, I still, yeah, it's amazing to speak to people like you. I do like it, but it can be a bit frustrating because you won't take your props. I just see you just put it back on the floor, like, yeah, you give me all my props, and yeah, but it's not really me. It's all this stuff. Yeah, okay, but at the same time, not everybody's gonna go ahead and do what you've done. They'll be scared. They'll be afraid. They don't want to go up against the person who is a representative of somebody who's just hurt them. It's a big deal. So one question to you now is, why did you decide to make your own business as opposed to join a business that's already doing this?
Oh, good question. I'm really not giving you the answer that you want, are you? So you're
No,
like,
no. Every answer is perfect. Every answer is perfect. Don't worry. No, not at all.
I think I was so hurt and so damaged and so traumatized by my experience and what happened to me. I was like, I cannot risk my physical, mental health, safety by putting myself back in that situation.
Amazing. Yeah.
And so I will not go and work for someone else where I know there's a distinct danger of that happening, because I will lose myself. And who knows whether I would have survived. I mean, I was like, so I think, yeah, that's the answer that you want, really, and it's the truth. I just thought, I'm putting my life in danger.
Yeah.
And that's not being dramatic.
No, it's not at all.
I'm putting my life in danger if I get, can you imagine how soul destroying, you've told me you've been through it, to go back out there and trying to
Trust
find
me.
another job.
Hold on.
Oh,
It's not even just the going back out there. It's the one where, as a black man, I don't think it makes a difference, but I will say it to you. As a black man, I can tell you, as a father, I can tell you that I know what I'm going through, and I can have people close to me be like, nah, it's not because you're black, it's because you're not trying hard enough. And it's like, no, it feel like a conspiracy theorist.
yeah,
No, there's shit going down out
yeah,
there that's stopping me doing things, and I'm doing my best, and I'm just getting passed over. I said to my brother yesterday, I've been through a few interviews and RFPs, requests for proposals and whatever. Some really big companies, universities and whatnot. I said to my brother, some of these processes are proper long, but it seems to be like the process is more being like we haven't found a good reason to legally say no to him. So we're going to keep on interviewing until we do.
so we wear him down so he doesn't want the job anymore, yeah,
Something.
yeah, yeah.
It's a weird one, and then they just seem to find one. And when they do, it's really like I went for a position as a digital marketing tutor with everything I do, server side administration, can code, graphic design, everything. And the thing came back saying, "Yeah, we've decided not to go ahead with application because you're not technical enough." And I just looked at it like, "What are you talking about?"
What are you talking about? Or the
But at the
worst is when they
same
say, "Oh,
token,
you're over,
yeah, overqualified. But at the same token,
overqualified."
having the one of the last conversations, I had this question hit me, which I was just like, I have to tell you because anyway. So the lady I was speaking to, last interview, she said to me, okay, so how do you bring British values into your training? What?
Mm?
What?
What are
What are you
British?
talking about? What are British?
What are British values? Sorry.
First of all, what are
This is
British values? And secondly, if I try and even touch what I think they are, why would I be at the top of the leaderboard as somebody who can provide these so-called British values? But it was one of these questions that thrown out and just like, okay, this is dead. This is dead.
yeah. We are getting the role. Yeah, yeah. And I think you're right about other people not supporting and advocating and telling you, like you said, it's like almost like a conspiracy theory. Like I remember someone saying to me at the time, you're not Michelle Obama. Like, what do you think you're doing?
Wow.
Not Michelle, I said, well, I could be.
Yeah, of course.
But it's all of that noise, all of that going on at the same time as you're dealing with situations with your trauma or whatever it is that's happening to you, that sort of really does drive home to you that this is a survival tactic.
I can tell you
This is the
something
survival
off
instinct.
being at that event the other day. There, I didn't speak to everybody, of course, but the overall feeling that there was a massive mix of people, and when they spoke to you, oh wow, this person is here and whatnot. But there was another very interesting group of people that were there. They didn't come together, but there were a group of people. I spoke to one who is personally going through what we're talking about and follows you all over social media for personal help to help with the situation they're going through.
I didn't know that.
I know, that's what I'm telling you. So when I hear that, and then I hear things you're saying, I've said it to you before we started recording. I'm gonna say it to you again now. It's really important for me when I listen to you, protective over human beings that are just amazing and whatever, that you're taking care of yourself and so on and so forth, and you can't spread yourself everywhere and you can't solve everything. But at the same token, when we talk about working individually with people in any such a way, it almost feels like the companies you work with, and I totally get it from speaking to you and hearing you, but it feels like the companies that you work with, they're like the lucky ones, but because they get you in that way, other people who are going through what we're talking about don't get your energy. Do you get what I'm saying?
Well, that's why I still offer the mentoring and the coaching. So
Right.
that it is that personal one-to-one. So I told you earlier today, I've been mentoring someone who's
Yeah.
been given DE&I within their organisation and helping them along, not just their work journey, but in terms of their personal journey and that confidence and what they need as someone from an underrepresented community, helping them navigate this journey is what really gives me the value. So, in case I do it.
Yeah.
And, I would definitely say connect me with that person. I will speak to them. And, I think it's two-pronged, really. I think the onus is on businesses in terms of that corporate space, deconstruct and dismantle any systemic barriers that have manifested, any bias, any discrimination, working out, are we genuinely inclusive? Do we have inclusive policies, procedures, all of that stuff? There's also that personal accountability. So
Right.
all the people that work within that organisation, you have relative remit, power and influence to
Right.
advocate, to make change. And that has that cumulative effect that I talked about at the event. So if we all do, or can introduce, a few things in our relative remit, power and influence, that has that massive cumulative effect. And I gave that example of the plastic bag.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, when we first heard that that we needed to save our planet and the globe was in trouble, I remember thinking, well, how am I, Joe, going to balance people, planet, and profits? But like, if you go to the supermarket now and you forget your canvas bag and you have to buy that 30p plastic bag, how wildly inappropriate does that feel? And that's
No, you hit a nail there. Speaking about that, because it's not even about the canvas bag; it's more about carrying this stuff to the car rather than getting the bag because of that, right? And until you said it, I hadn't really clocked.
Yeah.
It's not even really the car. I don't think it's the car. I don't think people. I don't even. I can talk to myself. I talk for myself. I don't really think it's even about consciousness about the environment. I just think it's become a new habit.
Yeah. Well, I do. No, I'd like to think that people do think about the environment and they do think about sustainability. And well, it's like an educational piece, isn't it? An awareness piece. Like, I'm one. I don't want to spend 30p on a plastic bag and throw it in the bin.
For sure.
But two, I'm killing wildlife. They're going into our seas. All this educational piece that we've heard in terms of sustainability, people have digested it and taken it on board. So then therefore comes through in your actions. So, as I was saying on Thursday, there's still a bit of a disconnect with DE&I. So people know it's the right thing to do. They kind of get we've got individual and collective responsibilities to do the right thing. They can't quite translate that into practical action and tangible actions. So
is that your job? Is that your job then, to help them understand how they can?
Yeah. So we really look at, so when I was talking about, for me, being strategic is being successful. So in the way that you would assess any other aspect of your business, you need to assess where your gaps are, what's the knowledge you need to improve on, what are the practical steps that are relevant to you as a business. That might be a talent acceleration program. That might be investing in that for your Black and ethnically diverse individuals. It may be looking at your equality impact assessment. And I built an anti-racism framework for the British Library to go alongside their equality impact assessment in terms of that practicality, or even like doing data metrics. So do you actually really have an understanding within your organisation who are the highest earners, who's getting paid the most? What does that demographic look like? Is it all white people? Who's getting the jobs? Who's getting the juicy projects? But, you have to have a real picture to know where you're heading, to be able to achieve those measurable outcomes and create that impact. So yeah, we go in and we're very much that practicality. Obviously, the other stuff I do, like the talks, is about raising engagement, to big audiences, getting that conversation started. The mentoring and coaching, helping individuals. It's a collective bag that I hope is really making strides in that change movement.
So you mentioned at the top before we started recording about B Corp, and that's been a big thing in my awareness over the last 5 years. Do you think we should, or are we on the way to having some kind of certificate like that for companies who are doing DEI well? Or do you think it's necessary, or?
It's more about how you're operating as a business opposed to the DE&I lens. But yeah, well, I suppose the DE&I lens is very contributing. contributing
All good, man. Why
factor.
not?
That is, no, you had loads of tongue twisters in the beginning, so I'm like, I'm good, I'm good. I'm tired. It's 4 o'clock now. I'll be back to work all day. It's a big factor. Yeah, I don't think you necessarily have to be doing DE&I to be B Corp. You don't, but obviously
No,
it
not
helps
to be
me.
B Corp. Sorry, that
Oh,
we have some kind of badge that is linked to the efforts around
I
DE&I, so that
see.
if you, because I go to websites now, especially a lot of
Ah,
digital agencies do this to a certain extent. They end up, certain ones go
mm,
through the process, which is
mm.
really long to become a B Corp. So I'm just wondering, do we already have, because this is quite new to me as a movement and different organizations, or should we be moving towards having that kind of certification for businesses who are doing DE and I well? Because things like B Corp and another one that came before that was um what was it, plant a tree. Do you know about this? So they will say that part of their
Mm.
profits go to
Oh yes,
yeah, those kind of movements.
yeah.
Yeah, but for D and I, do you think that we should be moving towards having something along those lines? So where you'll end up with a B Corp certificate on your organization, somebody can end up with a badge which is linked to all of the efforts around D and I.
What I would say is going through the B Corp accreditation process is a really onerous process, so you have to be really invested in it. So if you did have some sort of accreditation, I think it
Accreditation,
would
that's the word.
speak to that. Yeah, I think it would speak to that investment piece. It's not something you can just. It would need to be something
Buy,
as robust
basically.
as the B. Yeah, you can't buy it.
Yeah,
If I see, there's no accreditation right now for DE&I, but you know, I'm sure there's quite a few courses or things you can do, but how does that really translate? So I
exactly.
think if you were to have that, it would need to be it needs to be akin to B Corp. It would have to be so robust that
Exactly that.
you would know that companies are investing time, money, resources. And what's good about B Corp is that it's you have to have the proof. So if it were to be a DE&I initiative, you would have to prove that you are actually doing this in an authentic way and not in a performative way. So in that respect, I think it would be good. My other thinking is that we don't want it to be performative and something
No,
that companies, especially if they're wealthy companies or have a lot of money, you can just pick up. It has to
there
be
you
the
go.
same accreditation process, whether you're a tiny SME or you're some big corporate.
So you spoke about mentoring and mentoring others, but I want to know who has empowered you or who empowers you, and outside of your children, right? When it comes down to looking after them as the mama bear, I, I get that you help other people, but who helps you?
I would say that I have built my tribe over the last couple of years, and I have some people that are very close to me, that we bounce off each other, that we speak to each other all the time. Because this work is, it can be very traumatic
I bet.
and triggering. So I think it's really important to have people around you that share the same values, that are looking to the future in the same way as you are, that you don't have to validate yourself or prove your credibility or validate your experiences or even explain it. I
Right,
think, I've been in a lot of rooms with a lot of people when the premise is I have to start proving the validity of my story or
right,
being asked why I signed an NDA or was it really racist?
right,
So
right.
to have people around you that you just know get you and you get them really helps me. And so I don't have any like massive superstars or amazing people
No,
that
no.
give me strength.
I was just thinking
Yeah,
more about. I was thinking more about friends or family, to be fair. But whether or not it's
yeah.
an elder or whether or not it's some, regardless of the age, just somebody who is there to support you. Because it's all good to look up to somebody like you and be like, "Oh my God, look, she's helping other people." But it is also true that I remember teaching clients a long time about the fact that Usain Bolt has several coaches. Right,
Mm.
we know
Yeah.
he can run, but he has
Yeah.
several coaches helping him because he needs that support, right? All people at a certain level of performance have to have support. So is the support network that you've got around you the kind of support network that is needed? Because you're a human being, so there's got to be ebbs and flows. So being around these people can also help reignite the reason why you're doing things. On, like you said, you might have gone, I can only imagine if I try to step into your shoes, going into an engagement where they said they're about this, but then they just give me bare friction. I'm like, no, allow this. I'm not even doing this for money because this is a headache. But then you go back to your people and they either get you to, in a way, get you to refocus on who you work with, but you're definitely not going to put the bag down and decide not to do it anymore.
No. And I think it's about finding your perfect clients and like those who align with your values and like you know, and there's clients that I work with, like the Croc, you know, who sponsored the event last Thursday, and it's just an absolute pleasure because we are on the same page, we share the same values, we want the same, we want to achieve the same goals, and so, and they, you know, never get me to explain myself or prove my credibility, etc. I think there's clients that I've worked with when they know they need to do this, but they don't really want to do it,
Yeah.
and they're the hard ones. Like I did a workshop earlier this year, and the client who engaged me for the engagement workshop just said they were like a pack of baying wolves. Like, and I just felt so bad. I literally was drenched in sweat by the time I got off, got off the stage, because I was just like, they were literally attacking left, right, and centre. So you don't really want to have that conversation. Anyway, I've gone left field
No,
from
no,
what I
no,
was
no.
talking about.
You're spot on because I was
Oh,
going to
it's
ask
not on.
you,
Okay, yeah. But can
who
I just say
are
about
you?
Usain,
Go on, go on.
about Usain Bolt? It was a really good point because in the first couple of years of Amp Up Your Voice, I had 3 different business mentors, and they were integral to building the business with me and being that person I could bounce off and talk to and help build the business. You can't do everything by yourself, and as you
No.
know, I do a plethora of things, including
Yeah,
writing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
writing my book. So yeah, I'm with you saying, I'm like, you need people who are going to back you. You need people who are going to support you. Sadly, I've lost quite a lot of people around me since I started Amp Up Your
I
Voice,
bet. I bet.
including family.
I bet.
Like, both my sisters and my brother, there's no relationship there, and it's really hard to articulate, and it's really hard to understand why.
Hmm, hmm.
But I just kind of just yeah, I now have a tribe around me of people that I love and support me, and I support them equally back, and you just feel,
And that was a
it's
good
actually it's
thing about what you did. Oh, I don't think you did it in the sense of the way I've kind of said it, but it was a good thing to observe when I was at the event on Thursday. Is you naturally did it and they naturally wanted to do it. So I know there was Nima and there was Moichu that was there, but there was just, it didn't take long for me to realize she's not on her own here. And she's got
yeah,
people with her and they're not just like bit part VAs,
no,
right?
no. Although I've engaged a new black business who are doing my VA stuff and my social media stuff, and they came to the event, and the message that they and I've only just started working with them, and the message they sent me afterwards was just something along the lines of, "I know you hear this all the time, which I'm not sure is true, but you're absolutely phenomenal. You're inspirational, and you're contagious, and it's actually made me think about what I want to do internally with my business." And like, listen, I couldn't get better feedback for that. That to me, that's what success looked like from that event. And you're right in terms of the panel. Jen, founder of Sid Connects, we connect. I did my first bit of work with her. Andrew from the Croc, perfect client. Chrissy, I write for Chrissy, with Millennial Femme. I'm a Black culture writer for her. And Sarah, the owner of Fresh and Fearless, it's a new connection, a year or so, but we've done, I just love them all and they love me, and I think that comes across, right?
Oh, it's so beautiful. The power in the room, not just the power in the room, sorry, the collaboration, which is so much what we need nowadays, because it really does turn the tide on what we see, where it's very individualistic. What's in it
Mm,
for me? And
yeah.
to see a group of people do their own thing, but come together to collaborate on another thing, for me is just beautiful. And it is the way that we turn the tide on things that are negative around us. Now, you spoke about it earlier and you said about ideal client. Can you describe your ideal client? And the thing is, for you being so multifaceted, you've got the companies, but then you've actually got the mentoring, the coaching side. So could you answer for both? What is an ideal business for you to work with? And then when it comes to your one-to-one work, what is an ideal client for you to work with?
I think I touched on it earlier. So in terms of your perfect client, as ones that really do share the same values, and so like our really strong values in Amp Up Your Voice are about collaboration, the power of network. How do we achieve collectively together and build that community? And it's those clients that don't want the one-off performative
Right,
workshops, that don't want just the one talk. They're like, how do we change this? We want to make authentic change. And not only that, they're willing to put in the economic investment,
right,
they're willing to put in the time, the resources, but the most important thing is about having that reflective piece in terms of challenging themselves and what they could do better. And
right,
just,
right,
even
right.
if it's uncomfortable, recognizing their situation and recognizing
They're open.
they're open. Yeah.
They're open. They're teachable. But I think the other thing you've touched on just now is they have a long-term vision for what they're doing. So I think if I was in your position, I would really be looking out for to kind of stay away from those companies, like you've said, that are trying to buy a badge and just
Mm.
have something they can say, what are you like? Well, look, there's a record of what we did 6 months ago. And that
Tick.
means that we're,
Yeah.
yeah, as opposed
Tick.
to the companies that
Yeah.
you've spoken about, who for them, they see it as something bigger than this moment. It's something into the future. And it does seem to be wide reaching into changing the status quo.
Yeah, I spoke to an organisation the other day, and both the people on the call were like, "Listen, we're not going to be in these jobs forever. So what we want to happen is that culture change, so that when we leave, this is embedded in our business.
Nice.
So it's not about them and their roles. It's like, what do we do? And that, again, that holistic view. And they're the clients that I want to work with. And it's often easy to see the gold standard and
Right.
where you want to be and what you want to achieve, but not know the reality of what it takes to get there. And recognizing that you don't have the expertise, that you do need to bring people in like myself, Amp Up Your Voice, and the plethora of other people to make that happen. I think it's that recognition, that ownership, that openness, and no, just being humble. Like, yeah, we're not getting it right.
Yeah.
We're not getting it right. Can you help us? Rather than we're doing this, this, and this, and this, and this, and maybe you could come in and do a workshop, because that is
Take a
really not going to
selfie with
change.
us. Take a selfie with
Yeah,
us, and that will just seal the deal.
yeah, it's not really, one of my best pieces of work this year was working with this huge charity on a retainer basis. So I went in every month for a couple of days, every month a retainer, providing that expert consultancy, having those conversations, doing that practical piece and making those changes. That's the value added.
Because it's not a one-time thing. It can't be, can it?
You
It can't
can't.
be. It's not
Because,
possible.
organizations as well think about, how do we become diverse? That is just the first building block, that representation piece. And yes, it is important. Yes, you need to have that representation, because you cannot aspire to be what you can't see. But you then need to start looking at that inclusion piece. Are you retaining? Are you attracting talent? Are you retaining that talent? Because if you're not, there's a problem, which means your marginalised communities are not happy. They're going elsewhere. So that's that long-term journey. And then if you want to, the ones that are really outperforming the rest are the ones that are really worrying about the well-being and the psychological safety of their people with protected characteristics. So they're really thinking about that, which was a big agenda like a couple of years ago. I remember, but
Yes.
health and well-being
Yeah.
for your demographic. So diversity, inclusion, psych safety, and then that equitable landscape. So are you making sure that everyone has access and opportunities? That's how it translates into how are you protecting, how are you promoting, how are you investing in your marginalised individuals and communities? They're my perfect clients.
Beautiful. And what about one-to-one?
One to one, I mean, I can't think of a single mentoring or coaching bit that I've done that I haven't enjoyed, but I would say the people that get the most value out of it are the ones, again, that are, willing to reflect on their journey to date. I help them get an understanding of where they want to be. I think it is having that openness and being receptive and putting in the work, because it's not an easy thing to work on yourself, right?
No,
There's time
and
pressure.
that's
We've
the
got
bit I wanted to
families.
that's the bit I wanted to find out from you. How much within your work one to one is there a blend or balance between acknowledgement of what has happened to them, but also responsibility for doing something about it, as opposed to
Yeah, so
a kind of conversation where it's like having a rant or a cry and just like poor me kind of thing, as opposed to, I think you kind of touched on it. Should you have been in that place in the first? If I was doing your job, I would be exploring why were you there anyway? Because I don't think that's where you should be. So what were you trying to do, and how did you end up there? And even though, yes, the racism and discrimination part of it, but the responsibility. So do you have these kind of conversations with people, and is it important for them to have the ability to, like you've said, I think, self-reflect and realize where they have influence on what happens next, as opposed to waiting for you maybe to change the world around them?
yeah, I mean, it really is about them. So I think it's really important for them to be able to talk about their trauma or what's happened or what is happening
Yeah,
currently
right.
to them at the time. I think that is a very important part of it. But then it's, again, how do we then navigate that very thorny landscape so that you are successful, that you are happy, that you know who you are, you can walk in your truth, and you have I try and give them a toolkit, like almost like a virtual toolkit, so that they are, equipped with some of the challenges that most definitely will come their way. And actually, that builds confidence. Once you build
Preparedness, yeah.
confidence, then you can build your brand, what's your personal brand. So really getting to know who you are, where is it you want to be, what are your values, and then it is that forward thinking piece. So once you establish all of those bits, when you start applying for jobs or moving in your career, you very quickly can tell the organisations that you do not want to
Uh-huh.
work in,
Okay.
that don't share the same values. And a lot of organisations spend a lot of time telling their candidates about themselves,
Hmm.
and who they are and what they want to be. And it's, as you, as a candidate as well as a person, you need to spend that time investing who they are and where they're going and what type of organisation they are. So again, it's
Most
about
definitely.
putting in the work, putting in the time. None of this comes easy. So
No, not at all.
everyone that thinks it comes easy, like, whew, mistake. The people that get the most value are the ones that are willing to graft. They're willing to grind. Change is their jam. They are ready to go.
And grow.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
go and grow. Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a business owner or entrepreneur?
Initially, I would have said entrepreneur, but now I am absolutely a business owner. And Amp Up Your Voice Limited. Yeah, we are a fully fledged business now. So
There's something about you and up your voice when I listen to you speak about it. Now, I know people who have done businesses, and you could put you side by side with them at that moment, and you're like, wow, they're proud. But there's one person who's proud that the business actually is making money, and but then when you have this smile on your face, it's something else. You're super proud about this, but it seems to be a lot deeper than just I made a business and it's successful.
because I think it was what I was saying before, I feel like I've created a legacy, and it might be a tiny, 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 tiny legacy in this whole big wide world, but I feel like I've made my mark. And
It's
I would
influential.
say, Kate,
Amp up your voice is influential, right?
yeah, it's
There you
influential.
go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the big, big, big grand scheme of things. But what I'm most proud of is building that legacy and believing and knowing that I am contributing to that change movement and changing people's lives, essentially. And yeah, I'm super, super proud, and I have no
You should
intention of
be.
stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, so saying if you're flying the wall, and I think, after you've had a really good engagement with the clients, what would you love to hear them saying about you? What's the one thing you love them and about you, right? Because again, people like yourself, you always stick this business, the logo and everything ahead, and it's like you can't separate the fact that you are the furnace behind this. So what would you love to hear them say about you?
Oh gosh, this is a hard one. I am most happy when people come up to me and just, are inspired to create some sort of change. And, like I did a talk for 50-50 women on board, and I could see this woman in the audience who kept looking at me and looking at me. And every time I was speaking, she was looking at me. And as soon as that talk finished, she literally came from the back screaming at me, and she just said, I feel like I've known you all my life. My sister, like, I feel like I've known you all. Thank you. She was like, thank you, because you have got the confidence to say what a lot of people haven't. And I just really respect you for that. So I suppose it would be about, yeah, that inspiration, that respect, that, yeah. And also, I'm a Queen networker. So everyone's like, how do you? I know I've taken my little boy with me to quite a few events. He's like, I've never seen anyone work with women the way you do, Mum. So,
What?
when
What?
they're on, yeah, boom, boom. So yeah, I suppose it'd be along those lines.
How did you decide on Amp Up Your Voice as the name for the business? And was there another name that you were considering?
No, it was the first name I came up with my one of my business mentors, Jo Valentina Sinclair, and we were talking about the business, and she was like, "What is it you want to do?" And I was like, "Amplify people's voices. Like, we need to be heard." And she was like, "Amp up your voice." We just came together. We just sort of went, "That's it." And I never looked back. We just, and it came from that deep desire of what the value was and what the proposition was for the business, and what my need was. And it was, how do we amplify underrepresented voices? And yeah, it was the first name, and it will be the last name. I think it will be the last name. And yeah, I haven't looked back.
Oh, it's a perfect name. Okay. Could you share a challenge you faced while building your business and how you overcame it?
The challenge that I have now is about scaling up the business. So I think when you're an entrepreneur and you're excuse me, you're a sole trader, and you can only go so far. And then when you get to become a limited company, you do need that backing and that investment piece. So I suppose the challenge is, how do you do that scale up in a way that you're still maintaining control over your business and not
Right.
giving the equity to some other big player. And there's been people that are interested in Amp Up Your Voice, but I ultimately still want to have control at this point of the business. So for me, I suppose I'm probably at my most challenging point now, in terms of, we're getting some super big contracts coming our way. So how do I scale up in a way that I can still have that, is it artistic license or control over the message and what we're saying? Because that can't be diluted,
No.
because that is the brand, that is the basis of Amp Up Your Voice.
So how are you overcoming that then? What's your way of tackling that? What's your way of ensuring that that goes the way that you want it to and need it to?
I'm putting in the work, Case. I'm putting in the work. So I went to the Hustle and Heels business event a few weeks back. I made some appointments with some angel investors at the event. I'm tapping into resources. I'm speaking to people who are in that industry to work out the best way to do that, and whether that's a grant or another investment piece. But you have to really research, and you have
For
to
sure.
find out what is the right way for you. And actually, I feel like the one thing in Amp Up Your Voice is that I know everything about the business, and it's so I need to maintain that. So yeah, so I suppose I'm just exploring potential avenues right now, but yeah, it's a tough one. So any investors out there, hit me up.
It's amazing. So again, there was Nima. Who was your first hire? Who was the first person who came on board as a member of staff, regardless of whether or not they were on payroll or not? Who was that person? And then how did you feel about it? Because I know that feeling of bringing somebody on and it's like, it's a proper outfit now. I've got other people helping me doing things as opposed to it just being me. Who was the first person you brought on?
Oh gosh, you're asking me to think back now. Who's my first? I mean, no, and I would say this to anybody that starts their business: get your accountant first.
Yep, I had this conversation with my brother just last night, and it's not just get an accountant. Again, back to research,
Someone you
find
can
the right
trust.
accountant for you that really appropriates your
Yeah,
vision as opposed to just doing stuff and charging you. I've learned the hard
yeah.
way over 13 years.
Wow. And get referrals. Again, put in the work. Find out who's, like you said, who's going to align to your business, who's going to be invested in your business. Obviously, you can't expect your accountants to be totally invested, but as someone you can trust, essentially. So I do definitely go on a lot of referrals for that. And then quickly I started building the team. So then I engaged like a social media person, and then I got 2 virtual assistants. So as this was all building, I was like, yes, Joe, you have got, this is my team. And then my most significant hire is Nima Patel, so who's my
Yeah,
head of commercial.
yeah. She was at the event
And
on Thursday, right?
she's my, did you speak to her? She's my
No, I didn't speak to
cheerleader.
her, but I was quite drawn to her when I went to the website and looked at the about stuff for some reason. So she was
Yeah,
one of the people I connected with first on LinkedIn after the event as well.
super clever, super savvy, super smart. Has worked in lots of different industries. Has worked in the event speaker industry as well. As she helps me to negotiate all my deals.
Mm.
And yeah, so a very important person to
Is she
have.
a right hand woman?
Yeah, yeah, she is. And she even, like, we even have sort of created some content together in terms of the conversations and psychological safety and inclusion and stuff like that, because obviously she's a person of colour as well. So yeah, she's head of commercial, but really she's my right hand woman. So I
I
love her to
love it.
bits. Yeah, and we've become friends as well. She's part of my tribe,
Nice.
and we bounce off each other, support each other. Those ebbs and flows that you were talking about earlier, super super important. And yeah, as I told you earlier, I've just engaged QPA virtual assistants. I met them at the Black Business Show. I don't know if you went to the Black
Mm.
Business Show.
No, I wasn't there. No, no.
Oh, you
Need
should
to go
definitely go
along.
next
Yeah.
year. Oh, it's such a good event. And they've got all of these businesses, like all of these black businesses and different businesses. And as soon as I met them, because I'm a real instincts person as well, and I'm really intuitive. I'm Pisces. I'm very intuitive, very creative. But as soon as I met them, I just said I took my little boy with me. I said, yeah, I'm hiring them. He said, how do
Nice.
you know? I said, I just know. And they've come on board. They've been fantastic so far, and they were there on Thursday. So yeah,
Oh
so
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, you're saying.
yeah, it feels good to have a team. You
Yeah,
know,
so it should, and so it should. I've got a few more questions, about 3 questions. So my first one is, what is a culture writer?
what is a culture writer? Have you not read any of my articles?
No, I
So
haven't,
I've
and I definitely will start to do. But yeah, what is a culture writer as opposed to just being a blogger, writer, journalist, or whatever? This is very specific.
It's very specific. I mean, first of all, you can go on my website and my articles. Some of my articles are there, or you can go on the Millennial Femme Instagram page, and my articles are there as well, or website. And so I just talk about all things culture, all things black culture. So it can be from Kamala Harris to what's going on in the UK. I'm trying to think of examples now. What I've written about. Colorism, and I kind of write about topical events, so what's happening now, what's happening over the last couple of months,
So is it from a point of view
sort of,
of, is it a point of, do you do it for, oh, I forgot the word. I spoke to someone recently, they gave me this something journalism. Anyway, whatever. Is it from a point of view of this thing is happening, I need to educate you about it? Or is it from a point of view of this thing is happening, I need to educate you about it, about, in a sense, I have to tell you about it like a journalist? Or is a big part of it your commentary about what's happening?
yeah. So for me, it's about sharing my voice, and it's actually given me and helped me give me quite a lot of traction with the Amp Up Your Voice. So when people understand you as a person, they understand your brand, they understand what you're talking about, they're more likely to engage with you. So for me, it's not about educating people. I don't feel like I need to educate people, or even that I have authority to do so. It's more about the commentary on it and my opinion on it, and what, some of the things we should be looking at, or highlighting some of the issues that need raising for discussion and for the engagement piece. So I would
Perfect.
never
We
want
call
to
this
come.
a thought leader. This is what we
I
call a
thought,
thought leader.
yes, I think that, I like that. I think, yes, thought leader, a baddie, a thought leader.
No, that's what it's called. It's called a thought leader. So here's a question. The
Yeah,
second question, it's actually 4 questions. But the second question is, do you prefer speaking or writing?
speaking.
Really? I thought it was going to be writing. Okay.
Well, I hesitated then, but I'll tell you the truth. Writing comes very naturally to me. Like, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel
Mm-hmm.
like I have to. As soon as and I have to be in, because I'm creative. I have to be in my moment. But when I get down, I'm in that moment. It's like it just comes out, and it's not something that I have to labour or find difficult at all. So in that way, it's really pleasurable. It's really enjoyable. Um, I love the reception, the feedback I get when I write my articles, and I would probably say that, Kate, it's taken me the majority of my life to feel psychologically safe. It's taken me the
Right.
majority of my life to have this voice, and I
Right.
am not going to let go of it now.
No.
So that writing piece is super. But then, getting up on stage or getting on a platform and sharing my voice and seeing people's faces, or like people say, all of the people that come up to me afterwards, there's so much. My heart, is warm. It gets full,
No
and I'm
feeling
like,
like it, right? I bet there's no feeling
yeah,
like it.
it's amazing.
How do you measure business growth and personal growth as a business owner outside of revenue?
Most of my work is, I mean, LinkedIn is my platform. To anyone who's listening, who's thinking about starting a business, get your LinkedIn page on point straight off, and build your credibility on there. So word of mouth is, a lot of my work comes through referrals and word of
Hmm.
mouth. For me, that's a massive compliment. So the more work I do, the more I get referred, the more like, you have to have Joe come in, you have
Hmm.
to speak to Joe. Joe's done this talk, because, and so for me, that's how I measure my success, is how much I'm generating and how much
Yeah.
conversation I'm generating and how much work. So opposed to revenue, but
Yeah.
how much I'm doing, I suppose
It's
that's
the butterfly effect of your impact, basically. That's what's happening. It's the butterfly effect of your impact, because you're touching somebody, and that's why I always tell people it becomes really easy to do marketing, because you don't even have to ask them. They just go out there and talk about you because you've done such an amazing job. That's the knock-on
yeah,
effect, and then the other people are like, what do you mean? They're like, listen, just speak to her. do they even really, but because of their relationship to that person, the person just comes along and then they meet you and like, oh my God, where have you been all my life? So yeah, I totally get that. As the more that happens, especially in quick succession, is definitely growth. From a personal point of view, when it comes to being a business owner, how do you measure growth?
Um, I think it probably is, as we were saying before, about my circle of people who's around me. I think you can really, gain a lot of knowledge by seeing, someone in their environment and who they're with. And, the people that I roll with are beautiful souls and well respected and amazing in their fields and really good friends. And I think that's a really good reflection of the person that you are as well. So that's how I
Oh,
would measure my
beautiful.
personal growth. Yeah.
Okay, last question is the bonus question, and you need to pick a number between 1 and 18.
My instinct was 7, so I'm going to go with 7.
What is it with number 7? You're like the third person who's picked
What?
7.
Really?
Seriously, I'm gonna ban number 7. Jeez. Right. Okay. Here
Well,
we
choose
go.
another one.
No, no,
I'm
no,
happy
no,
to
no,
choose
no, no,
another
no,
one.
no. That's totally fine. That's totally fine.
Lottery.
I'm gonna choose another one. um, if your business was a movie, what would it be, and who would play you?
Oh my God, I hate questions like this because like, even if
Yeah,
I go to a quiz,
it looks
even if
like
I
you would
know
have liked Seven. You would have liked Seven, but that's just how we roll. So no, that's the
what's
question
seven?
for
No,
you.
I went for what was
I'll
seven?
tell you after you've answered this one.
Oh, I was just trying to think of my favourite movie right now.
So, what kind of movie
Hmm.
would it be? First of all, drama, comedy, action, and which actress would play you?
I can't answer this. I can't. I just can't. I can't think. I've got my mind's gone blank. I'm thinking it would be a drama. 100% be a
Yeah.
drama. No, but I can't do it. I just can't. No, hold on. Let me think. I can't edit this bit out. Oh
I won't.
my god! Oh my god! All that's coming in my head is like the color purple. So I saw something about it today. Black Panther.
Go on.
Uh, um, who was the lead? Who played? Oh, you know who I love as well, Viola
Go on.
Davis.
Yeah.
Um, no, honestly, I've watched films all the time. I can't think of a single. I'm thinking Shawshank Redemption, Color Purple. No, these are terrible. I mean, they're great films, but they're terrible examples. Please ask me another question.
Nice. All good. Okay. Your another question. What's a common myth about entrepreneurship that you would like to tell people about or own the business? What would you say people go into business thinking and it's just like, nah, it's not like that at all?
I think people are pretty realistic that it's not easy to be an entrepreneur because if it was, people like lots of people would be doing it.
Well, you're saying
I
that, but at the
think,
same token, in over the pandemic, I had a
yeah,
lot. I had so many inquiries and so many calls because everybody wanted to do a business, but a lot of the time it's like, nah, you're not gonna get shea butter from Alibaba and sell it because there's Body Shop. I mean, what do you think you're doing? how much soap do you think you're gonna sell to be able to pay your bills? So I think
yeah,
people can go into business a bit sometimes actually thinking it is easy. They just need to come up with an idea.
yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I think that when people think of entrepreneurs, they think it's a get rich quick scheme almost, and that people are rolling in banknotes. But actually, what they don't see is the 48/7, the working weekends, that all that stuff. I mean, in the beginning, I was like,
Tell them
obviously now it's like leveled out, and
for sure.
it's and that's the process. But you have to initially put in that real effort and that work. And the feedback that I always get and from my mentors is you work so fast and so hard in a way that most people don't. And
Right,
I get things done.
right,
And I think a lot of people have, even if you have a fantastic idea, if you cannot execute that idea, if you cannot get it done, then you don't have a business. So spend less time thinking about what might be good and start actioning and stop putting the wheels in motion. Start building. It's all tiny little building blocks.
for
But
sure.
people think you just come into it and there's one big cell and there's one big picture. And
Right.
actually, it takes quite a lot of graft and it takes quite a lot of detailed thinking. But yeah, I said action orientated. You're not going to be a millionaire overnight, and it is a long term journey.
So there was me trying to mess around with the universe. That was question 7, and it was basically the question I should have asked you in the first place. So there you go,
Yes.
teaching me.
You should not mess with it. As soon as you start talking seven, I can see the number 7. I was like, I'm going to go for number 7. And
I'm telling you,
also, I'm
I think it's been 3 interviews in a row that the person said, because of such and something, 7. What is, this is the third
that's maybe a
time.
lucky.
Yeah, for
This
real.
might be a lucky
It's a very important
third
number.
time
Thank you.
lucky. I'm really bad. Like even if saying like I can't do a pub quiz. So even if someone says to me, "What's the color orange under?" I'm like, huh? And so when you were like the film, I was just like,
This is
I
this is the
literally was
reason
just
why I
like,
was no good at exams, because my mind goes blank.
uh,
Forget the revision. I'm just like, what? How? Write my name? What?
yeah.
Huh?
And it's not that you're not, it's not that you don't know it. It's just like being put under that pressure. And I think when it comes, yeah, like I watched a film last night, but also I'm really bad with names. So
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, 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 yeah.
I can see in my mind's eye, but I can't bring it. So sorry about that.
No, you don't have to be sorry, Joanne. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really, I feel so privileged to have been at your event last week. Thank you for the invitation again. Be interviewing today. You've been absolutely amazing. It's been a real honor for me. Truly, 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 truly. It's you know, I don't want to over egg it, but just to give an idea of how I'm feeling, it's like landing what people would term a celebrity for your podcast, and you know and just being like, I got to speak to them and they said yes to my podcast. And the thing is, though, to be fair, um, when you had said yes to the podcast, it was before the event. It was when I was at the event, I was like, oh, snap. Oh, is that who she is? So it's been an absolute honor. Really, really, truly. Thank you so much. Now, there are two types of people who are going to be attracted to you, to want to know about you. They're going to be people that work in organizations. And
Mm.
there's going to be, like I said to you at your last event, I did come across at least two women who were around you because they find strength in your teachings, your experiences, and your advice. So where should they go? And also, could you give a bit of explanation, because you mentioned about toolkits, about the book that you've written, and all of the links, I will make sure that they're available in the show notes. But where should people go to find out more about you, to connect with you?
You can go to my website, which is www.ampupyourvoice.com, all one word, lowercase. As I said, my platform's LinkedIn. So you can always send me a direct message, connect with me, follow me on there. Where else? I can't remember. Yeah. And yeah, LinkedIn and my website are the best forms of contacting me. You can find my ebook on my website. It's called The Roadmap to Diversity, Equity and Inclusion. And essentially, it's a toolkit, for organizations and individuals who want practical tools and techniques in terms of how they do that practical application in terms of protecting, promoting, and investing in marginalized communities. And it is quite practical, so it's a really helpful book to have. And the people that have
Could
read
you
it so
explain
far,
one of the tools that are in there, just to give an idea of what, when we say toolkit? Because it's interesting about words, right? We talk about
mm,
friends and Facebooks, or connection and LinkedIn. It can be lost, but this is, from what I've seen, it really is a toolkit. And I'll tell you something, just recently, I found something on Instagram, no, LinkedIn actually, which was professional way to say things at work.
mm,
And where you just want to turn around and say to the person, for example, look, I've already sent it to you in an email, stop asking me. It was given the professional way to say it. So it was a whole list of really useful stuff. So I sent it to my son, 28-year-old, because he's dealing with a lot
yeah.
of corporate stuff in his work, and sent it to my wife. That to me is what I mean by a tool. So what are the kind of tools we've got inside the ebook to help people?
One thing that I always understand when I'm giving my workshops and my engagement pieces is that people find language really confusing, and they are fearful of using the wrong terminology and fearful of getting it wrong. So actually, that then they then become siloed
For sure.
because of that fear factor. So actually, in the book, it does a real breakdown of what all the different terms mean in this current narrative. So
Mm,
inclusion, diversity, equity, the difference between equality and equity, and then how that again how that you can use that and translate that. And I think people find that hugely helpful. That's just
definitely.
like one little snippet from the book.
Oh, that's perfect. Joanne, thank you so much.
Thank
I will be.
you.
Oh, another thing I want to ask you is, if we wanted to go to another event, so I'm already via Eventbrite. I followed, well,
Hmm.
that was the Croc, I think. So I followed the Croc. So if you're there again, but wherever you are, not on a stalking kind of thing, but how do we find out about where you are so we could listen to you speak? How do you publicize that? Where do we get this information?
Oh, yes, I've realised in my contact details I didn't do my Instagram page. So my Instagram page is Amp Up Your Voice, and it's all lowercase, one word. So everything that I do, all of my events will be on my Instagram page, or will
Nice.
be on
Okay.
my LinkedIn page. So definitely connect with me on both of those platforms, and you won't miss a trick.
Ah, perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for. Now I've done that already, but now I know. Yeah, cool. Because I'm looking forward
Yeah,
to hearing you speak again and being at more of your events as well. Really, really, truly. Thank you for today.
definitely. And thank you
Okay.
so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure. Sorry.
No, 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 no. That's just me. That's just me. I like to gab too much sometimes. No, yeah, it's really been wonderful. So thank you so much for joining us for today's episode, and I hope to see you on the next episode. See ya. Bye bye. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. This podcast is for anyone who is passionate about making a difference through their work and wants to learn from others doing exactly the same. It's about the journey of creating a service business that not only generates revenue, but also contributes to the betterment of lives and the world around us. So if you are someone who has a story to tell, someone who is making waves in your field, or someone who has unique insights on the synergy between service businesses and societal transformation, I would love to hear from you. I'm always seeking amazing guests to feature on this show. So if you or someone you know fits this description, please apply via the link in the comments or the show notes of this episode.